to your point, because I can't help but think about this as you're breaking these teams down. Guys, like, I go on the ESPN app, okay, every morning, and I start just looking at the upcoming days. And I internally, in my mind, I circle stuff. I'll circle games that I'm thinking to myself, that's a good game. I got to pay attention, pay close attention, watch it closely. Guys, I don't have to look at the NCAA Division I schedule because I have enough time circling every single game in the Big 12. I'm not kidding you.
It's insane.
There's not one game in that conference that is not interesting. And the fact is, some of their games end up, just being honest here, on the Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. Like, there's going to be some great college basketball games that end up not being on linear TV, which is for a totally separate discussion. But my point is, like, that league is ridiculous. That league's second team is going to have players that would be first team in some of the other power leagues. And I would just go off that by saying this. I wonder, like, of course you want to be the king of your conference. The Big 12 tournament this year in Kansas City feels like, what, 2010 in the Big East when they got 11 teams in the NCAA tournament? That's what it's going to feel like there. They're legitimately, whoever finishes last, you're not going to feel like they have no shot to win the Big 12 tournament. You're not going to feel that way. Kansas City is going to be nuts during that conference championship. There's not a bad matchup. And there's teams that you easily could forget about. Like you said, T.O., like, let's not forget about Mike Miles. Let's not forget about Iowa State. Somehow, some way, the Wizard of Oz has reloaded Iowa State, and the Cyclones
Wizard
are back
of
as
Oz.
well.
Well done.
Wow.
Well done.
It's crazy. That league is nuts, man. That league is nuts.
Yeah. To your point, just to kind of put into context how tough it is.
And they're bringing Houston in. I'm
Yes.
sorry, but come on.
Just to put into context how tough it is, every school in that conference is ranked in the top 45 right now, in the top 45 on KenPom. Kansas State is the worst team. I'm doing air quotes here, the worst team in the Big 12, according to KenPom. Iowa State, who just beat Baylor by 15, who has a win over Villanova, who has a win over North Carolina. They are the second worst team. They're 41st in KenPom. I'm going to put this all in the context, lay it all out for you. 41st in KenPom, Iowa State. 42nd in KenPom, Wisconsin, a team you guys talked about last night, maybe the biggest contender to Purdue in the Big Ten. Providence, 43rd. Penn State, 44th. Kansas State, 45th. Michigan State, 46th. Michigan, 47th. Think about that for a second. Yeah. 4 teams in the Big Ten that are all tournament teams are right there in the same range as the 2 teams that are the worst teams in the Big 12. The level of play in that league is insane. Every conference game is going to be worth watching. There's not a single game in that league that is not worth watching.
Is it crazy to say, and just tell me if it's crazy to say, please, that if you looked at the 10 Big 12 teams right now, that the team that actually is looking themselves hardest in the mirror, thinking about how are we going to figure all this out, is actually Baylor?
I was going to say that too. Yeah. They're still trying to figure everything out. Those guards are having a hard time, like, really getting it together. Iowa State beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah. Part of the issue is that LJ Cryer is not back yet. I think he's dealing with concussion. So he's not back. Keontae George has not quite come in at the level maybe that we expected for doing all of this, for doing everything, right? He's a little bit inconsistent. He's a little bit inefficient. He's a little bit turnover prone. And you combine all of that with the fact that they are not at the level defensively as you would normally expect a Scott Drew Baylor team, at least what the last couple of years have been. And we're seeing them kind of underperform a little bit, maybe what expectations were at the start of the year. But look, T.O., that backcourt, Flagler, Cryer, Keontae George, I don't want to see them in March.
Yeah, and it's still, 16 and a half, 15 and a half, 15. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that are trying to still piece together everything. And it's that league, man, top to bottom, every night, it's going to be a bloodbath. The team that I didn't think was going to be any good, Oklahoma, like Grant Sherfield has been terrific.
Great.
And not only terrific, one of the most valuable players in the league.
Now,
so it's
keep going.
No, it's every night. I wonder if West Virginia is going to take a dip, because I just don't see kind of where they're able to keep up outside of just making it an absolute jujitsu fest every day whenever they play.
Well, that's what they do. And
Yeah,
I remember I talked to Hugs back in June, and the big thing he said about this group, like he called out his team from last year and was like, they're soft. I don't have the quote directly in front of me from the Almanac, but he was basically like, that was not the kind of team that we want. They were too soft. And this
they were
year's
competitive.
team, like these,
that was the big thing. They weren't competitive dudes.
yeah. And this year he's got a whole bunch of competitive dudes that care about winning. So I'm willing to bet that I said it before the season started. I'm willing to bet right now that they're going to be an NCAA tournament team, just because of the fact that if Hugs likes his group and has a bunch of dudes that want to fight with him, he's going to find a way to make that work. It doesn't
Well, let
matter
me ask you
what the
this.
roster looks like.
So Oklahoma State and Oklahoma are the only ones with more than 4 losses right now. If you're looking at conference records, what's the worst that a team can do and still get consideration to go to the big dance?
7-11. You got to
You
get to
think
7.
they still get legitimate?
That's what Iowa State was 7-11 last year and got in, and they didn't even get a playing game.
Yeah,
7-11.
You can't go 6-12. If you go 6-12, you don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
If you win 6 times in 18 games, I don't care what league you're in, you're not getting it.
I'm with that.
Cutoff. That's my cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and I think we're going to see 8 teams finish 7-11 or better, potentially 9.
Yeah, 7-11. Iowa State last year was the year that the Seahawks got in at 7-9, and Marshawn Lynch went Skittles on everybody, and they beat the Saints in Seattle. Which, by the way, NFL playoffs, we're potentially going to have what, two teams that are under 500 in the NFL playoffs. That 7-11 to me is the cutoff there. I mean, but if there's a team that
I will say this though, Fanta, the only league that I think it's possible to have a team that goes 6-12 and get in is this Big 12, right?
No
I'm not going to sit here and advocate for it, and I'm not going to say that I think that they have to get in. But if at the end of the day, like if it comes down to it, let's just say like, I don't know, but if someone like Iowa State, with some of the wins that they have in non-conference, if they end up going 6-12 in this league,
maybe. I don't think they should be allowed to be in. It's just my take. But then again, you got to find. Everybody always forgets this. You got to find 68 somehow. I think at the end of the day, to your point, Rob, we could go on to say that this year's Big 12 is as strong as any conference we've ever seen, because the bottom of it is still NCAA tournament quality. And that's crazy. It's a 10-team league. If you're in a 10-team league, your hope is to get like 5 or 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. If you get 7 or 8, that's historic. If you somehow get 8 or 9, you're out of your mind. You'll never there's no way that they could possibly duplicate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. How about the kids at Texas that are dealing with all that stuff and then go on the road to Oklahoma and get a win?
Quietly, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, credit to those kids. Credit to
come from behind, not just a win, a come from behind win in a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Credit to those kids.
Really impressive.
Yes.
I want to ask you guys about this, because my second overreaction, and we'll get to Pitt and Penn State later, because I do want to talk to you guys about them. But